In this lesson, we are looking at the last unit of Earth and Beyond, which covers the development of astronomy. Okay, the development of astronomy. And this unit is divided into two subsections, which is early indigenous knowledge and the information about the scientists that are involved in the development of astronomy. Okay, so let's start with early indigenous knowledge, and we start with the first theory. Astronomy is the oldest science in the world. Just think of the wise men of the East who followed the bright star to Bethlehem in their search of the king that had been born. Ancient people saw that the sun, moon, and stars move through the sky in a fixed and predictable pattern. They could organize their lives according to the movement of the celestial bodies. And then the second one, it is the calendar. The first theory, it is astronomy, right? The movement of the moon, sun, earth, and the stars. And then the second indigenous knowledge is the calendars. Even with so many things around us changing, the calendar that counts down the days, weeks, months, and years remains the same. This was not always the case in the distant past. There used to be many different types of calendars and ways to keep time. In ancient times, people did not have much knowledge of Earth's orbit around the sun and its own axis. Therefore, the calendars were not as accurate as today's calendars. The modern calendar is based on three important astronomical events. Number one, it's based on the day. And number two is based on the month. Number three is based on the year. So let's look at each one detail. A day, it is the time from one sunrise to the following sunrise. It is one complete orbit of Earth around its own axis. And then we have a month, approximately 29.53 days, which it is one complete orbit of moon around the Earth, right? And this, it is also one complete of a it is one complete of orbit of moon around the Earth. It is correct. And then we have a year, which is one complete of orbit of Earth around the sun. A year is also one complete orbit of moon around the Earth. Since these periods cannot be divided easily, calendars have always been inaccurate. Some calendars were based on tradition, while others were calculated more scientifically. As people's knowledge of the universe increased, the ancient Romans had great influence on the composition of the current calendar. The ancient Roman, Babylonians, and Egyptian civilians, a year consistent The ancient Romans had a great influence on the composition of the current calendar. In the ancient Roman, Babylonian, and Egyptian civilization, a year consisted of 12 months of 30 days each. Each month was determined by the orbit of the moon around the Earth. However, this resulted in their years having only 360 days. By looking at the position of the stars, they realized that the calendar is 5 days short, and these 5 days were added to the end of the 12th month. The Roman emperor, which is Julius Caesar, who lived 100 BC to 44 BC. Okay. Then had changes made to the calendar. The new calendar had 365 days and 12 months. Every fourth year, an extra day was added in February. The new year started on 25 March. The names of the month as we know them are also of Romance origin. July is, for example, named after Julius Caesar. Oh, I did not know this. This calendar was called the Julian calendar. In 1582, Pope Gregorius, this number, you can read it, moved the start of the new year to 1 January. This is called the Gregorian calendar and is used worldwide today. So today we use a Gregorian calendar which start on 1st January, but the initial calendar started on 25 of March. Okay, and now we move to the next page. You can read the interesting facts. Now on the next page, let's look at the first watches. Ancient civilization used the position of the moon to determine their months. However, they also realized that the sun moves through the sky in a fixed pattern by day. By watching the shadows made by the sun, they realized that a day can be divided into different parts. This is how the first sundials were invented. The earliest sundials or its sundials. The earliest sundials discovered by archaeologists are the obelisk and the shadow rock. Let's read this paragraph again. The earliest sundials discovered by the archaeologists are the obelisk and the shadow rock. From the ancient Egyptian and Babylonian civilization. You can read the interesting fact as well. So we have the watches now. So after the first is the astronomy, second is the calendar, number 3 is the first watches, which here they call them the sun dials. Okay. Now we go to the fourth one. This is the indigenous knowledge, remember. It's the seasons now. Since 18,000 BC, since 8,000 years BC, when people started cultivating the soil, they realized how much they relied on good calendars. In ancient Egypt, the civil year was divided into 3 seasons, which are flooding, ascent, and recover. Now, flooding, they say when the Nile flooded the agricultural land, and then ascent is the time for planting when the Nile returned to the riverbed, and recover the time of low tide and harvesting. Many of the indigenous people also divided their seasons according to agricultural activities that took place during the course of the year. The Northern Sotho distinguish between the 3 seasons. A time to plow and plant is September to December. The time when the harvest is ripe is January to April. The time when plants dry out, it is May to August. The Pleiades, or 7 sisters, is a group of stars that is visible between September and May, just above the horizon. African nations like Maasai, the Zulus, and the Khoikhoi knew that when these stars appeared for the first time just above the horizon after sunset, the rainy season has started. It was then time for the land to be cultivated so that crops could be sown. This knowledge was passed on by fathers to their children. So this is the seven sisters, which is called the Pleiades, which is a group of stars that is visible between September and May. And modern seasons are divided into winter, spring, summer, and autumn. So we have our seasons here. Then you can read your interesting facts, and we come to the indigenous knowledge number 5, which is legends now. Okay. Can you see there at the bottom? They say legends are the ancient stories that were told from generation to generation. These stories can contain elements of the truth. In ancient civilization, the sun, moon, and stars played a big role in everyday life. The written language did not exist yet. Therefore, legends about the mystery of celestial bodies have been retold through the generations. These stories were usually told around the fire under the night sky. And under legends, we have the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross can be used to determine where the South is. It has been used since the 16th century by the seafarers to find their way across oceans. So there at the top of page 326, they say below is a representation of what the Southern Cross looks like in the night sky and how to determine the south with the help of the Southern Cross. So this is your Southern Cross. This point is south, and we have Alpha Centauri, we have Beta Centauri, we'll have Beta Crux, and we'll have Alpha Crux. Okay. They say the Tswana people of Botswana called the Southern Cross Ditutlwa. To them, it looks like two giraffes. Okay. The Zulu culture saw the Southern Cross as a tree of life. Any hunter in the dense bush would be able to use the stars to find his way home. According to the Bushman legend, the Milky Way formed when a girl threw ash from the fire into the air to help her loved one. A hunter that was lost found his way home. The bright white stars were plant roots that he could use as food on the way. Okay, interesting. And then we have the Orion belt as well, which is the three bright stars in the Orion's belt represent the three zebras for the sun. For the sun, not sun, for the sun. The stars at Orion's foot and knees represent a tortoise. And then we have the Khoisan legend. The Khoisan believes if they had diseases or are in distress, they simply have to call for help from the sun, moon, and the stars. They often dance when it's full moon, and they mimic animals or hunting scenes. And then the last legend is the Khoikhoi. The Khoikhoi worshipped the moon. They believed that the gods provided the rains and prayed to the gods often under the full moon and new moon. They held their dance parties and feasts during full moon because the full moon was seen as the symbol of life and death. This brings us to the end of the first part of the development of astronomy.